Hello and welcome to Access Paranormal. My name's Jamie Williams and sitting next to me, as usual, is James Anthony.
I know, I'm back again as your guest presenter. Can you believe that? 3 weeks on the run. When he asked me to do this, he said to me, it's only going to be 1 or 2 weeks. I was like, all right, yeah, no worries, that's fine. And here we are 3 weeks later, but it's good fun, isn't it? And we have a laugh. Yeah.
And I'm hoping you're going to be on a lot more. I know there's going to be times where you're not going to be on, but when you are, I'll be dragging you along.
No, absolutely, yeah. So how's your week been?
It's been great.
It's been busy.
I'm back in work as usual. Course, I love my job and everything else. But in the meantime, I've been sitting there in the house contacting people for the show. Yeah. And we've got 2 great ones tonight.
We have got 2 fantastic guests on tonight. We really can't wait for you guys to hear them and hear what they have to say. I have to say, this week for me has been it's been a really busy week. And obviously I'm still working from home at the moment. And it was quite shocking that we've had some pretty stormy weather, haven't we? Really, I mean, the other night I had to walk into town, and the wind and the rain was really bad. It was. And I think it's quite damaging this time of year, because one of the problems is, when you get the gales in the autumn, a lot of the leaves are off the trees. Whereas at the moment the trees are fully in leaf, and there's been people flooded, and it's really unseasonable weather, really, isn't it?
I mean, it's phenomenal to see, but it's sad to see the carnage it's causing for people, and I'm so sorry for those people.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, on the flip side of it certainly makes things very atmospheric when you're in bed at night and you can hear the wind howling around the house and stuff like that,
It does, and me and you were down in a building the other night, and it was howling down there.
It was, wasn't it? Absolutely, yeah. That was quite eerie, wasn't it? Really,
it's too eerie.
But I also think one of the things you get with the bad weather is that because it rattles, you get the drafts and it rattles and it makes the kind of atmosphere. I do think it makes things creepier, don't you?
It does, but when you're doing like a little bit of an investigation, it makes it harder to define what is and what isn't.
Yeah, the best weather for investigations for me, I would say, and I'm sure you agree, is a very still moonlit night.
Definitely.
Because you've got that complete silence then, so if you're hearing things. It's not necessarily, the wind rattling a window or the rain coming down and stuff such as that. But yeah, it's been a bit. I think it's been a bit of a strange week. So I know we was moaning the other week that it was too warm. Now we're moaning it's been raining and windy so much. So maybe what we need is just some nice steady weather, sunshine and showers, something like that.
Some kind of normal kind of weather.
So have you been on Have you been out doing any like ad hoc investigations or anything like that?
Well, as I only live around the corner from the usual place we go to, I had a little nip down there and had a little bit of a walkabout.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we did, and we've got our first meeting soon as well with the group.
We have, with our group, which is
Ghost Quest Paranormal.
Ghost Quest Paranormal. Yeah, we've got our first meeting, and I think it's going to be really nice, because obviously we've not seen everyone since the lockdown started, have we?
No, it's going to be fantastic to see Jane, Jonathan, Bill. I'm trying to remember them all. It's been that long again. Leanne, Marie, my partner. Yeah, everyone. Can't wait to see every single one of them. It's going to be fantastic.
So I've had an idea in this week leading up to this show, and I thought, why you've managed to rope me in for guest presenting it with you a couple of times, I'm going to get my own back, and I've decided that we're going to do something called Jamie's Paranormal Challenge. Right?
Oh, I am not going in that room.
No, not that room. What's going to happen is that not this week, but next week, I'm going to give you a location to go to. I'm not going to tell you what the location is. I'm just going to give you an envelope, and you have to open it up, and you have to go to that location. You can only take one person with you, right? So I'd advise you taking Marie if you can, because she's
because she's like the rock of me.
And
yeah,
you've got to go and do a 2-hour investigation, right?
Oh, okay.
You've got to go and do it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to broadcast it live on air. So I'm not telling you where it is. I'll give you the location, and then you go and do it. And you've got to do that with just the 2 of you. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic. Daytime, nighttime? Can I have the lights on?
You can't have the lights, and it's going to be in the middle of the night. It's probably going to be outdoors. It's probably going to be raining, but you'll have fun.
So cruel. But yeah, I'm up for that challenge.
Are you up for that challenge? Right, okay. So the listeners are going to remember this now, and I'm going to make sure that you do it. And you won't let us down, will you?
Remember what?
We'll have to get a new jingle that goes, Jamie's Paranormal Challenge. And some fluty music to go with it.
And a huge scream on the end.
So tell us about the guest we've got coming up today.
Well, the first guest we've got Jamie Leicester.
Jamie Leicester. I know that it's going to be complicated, this, having 2 Jamies on the show, isn't it?
Yeah. And his group is called On the Other Side Paranormal Events.
Yeah, the Otherside Paranormal Events. The Otherside Paranormal Events.
I'm sure Jamie will correct us on that one.
He will indeed. And who else have we got?
And then we've got a person who I've known for a very long time.
Yeah.
Lynn Murphy, and she's going to be telling us about a special set of woods.
A special set of woods, right? Or can you give us any more clues
woods,
about
not like in Woodwoods, but like a forest.
So can you give us any special,
all I can say
information?
All I can say is it's in Connors Quay.
It's in Connors Quay.
I've been there several times now, and it's fantastic.
So I was reading the other day, I've got this fantastic book of old myths and legends and stuff such as that. And I think what would be really interesting is, in the second part of the show, to have a little chat about some different kind of types of haunting that you experience. Don't you agree?
Yeah,
because I think, when we think about ghosts, you have the image of the kind of the grey lady, or a phantom that kind of glides through a haunted graveyard. And actually, there's lots of different types of haunting, isn't there?
It's unusual.
I think we're going to be speaking to Jamie in a moment, but I think what we should do is, when we've done that, let's have a little chat about different types of haunting.
Definitely, that'd be interesting.
So we're really excited to be joined by our first guest. This is Jamie Leicester from the Otherside Paranormal Events. How are you doing, Jamie? You okay?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. And it's a bit complicated because we've got Jamie Leicester and Jamie Williams as well. How do you feel about that, Jamie? Another Jamie on the show?
It's very strange. I'm probably going to get very confused with who's who myself.
Yeah. Just have to call him Jamie L.
I'm going to call you Williams from now on, Jamie Williams. And Jamie, you can be Jamie for now. So obviously, it's going to be great to talk to you, to find out more about you and kind of your involvement with the paranormal and your experiences. But just to start us off, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become interested in the paranormal?
So I've been interested in the paranormal from a very young age. However, I think when I was younger, I had I suppose it was a bit of a fear of the paranormal.
Yeah.
My business partner and myself, who run the paranormal events company, Gareth, we probably about 7 years ago now, we booked to go on a paranormal event, and from there, it was the experiences that I had were absolutely amazing. And from there, my interest in the paranormal has just grown.
Great. And would you, obviously, how long have you been running the company for now?
We've been running the Otherside Paranormal Events now for nearly 6 years now.
Great. And I imagine you've been a little bit affected by everything that's been going on with coronavirus too.
Absolutely. We obviously no events of ours now have been running since March.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're going ahead again as of October.
Fantastic. And I think kind of, one of the things that obviously, as somebody who's done investigations myself, and I know Jamie Williams as well has obviously been on many. I don't know about you, but we've really missed it, and just kind of going out there, going to different locations and experiencing things. What about yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been bizarre because, practically every weekend we're usually out there, with the members of the public ghost hunting.
Yeah.
But for the past six months now, we've done absolutely nothing. So it's just going to be great to get back out there again, because we've just missed it so much.
Of course. So obviously you've been to many different locations with the company. What would you say if you had to pick kind of some of your top ones? What would you say were some of your favourite to investigate, and kind of what activity is there that happens there?
Yeah, so probably on top of my list actually would be Mill Street Barracks in St Helens.
Everyone says that, don't they?
Yeah, it's in the top number one in the top 10, I think.
It's it's very popular with our guests as well. Actually, each time we go there, we've never been let down at all by the activity we've had. Most particular in the cellar, it's always active down there. Guests have caught anomalies on photographs and videos. So particularly after an event at Mill Street, we always get inundated with photographs and videos. It's just amazing, and table tipping in particular is always phenomenal. Down there.
Jamie, what's the most frightening thing that's happened to you in Mill Street, or the most what can you say, the most memorable thing, time that's happened to you at Mill Street?
The most memorable thing at Mill Street, again, was down in the cellar. It was the very first time we visited, and it was the table tipping. There was a group of us around the table. The table was just absolutely going wild. It actually walked us out of one room, down the corridor, into the back room. Jamie, you'll know where I mean. I think it's the room that you don't like going in.
He won't go in that room.
Thanks for bringing that up again.
Yeah.
So, with Mill Street being your favourite, we sound a bit biased because every time we ask someone about it, they always say Mill Street, don't they? Yeah. Where other place? What another place that you've been to, which is unbelievably memorable for you, and why?
It's got to be Morecambe Winter Gardens in Lancashire.
I've been there before, and what a fantastic building that is to investigate.
It's absolutely. I mean, again, it's another place that never fails us on activity, but it's a place for me and everybody that visits. Actually, it's a place for me that even if you didn't get any paranormal activity, it's just a great location to visit because it's got so much history contained within its walls, and the building is just spectacular. But there, for me, again, it's underground, underneath the stage area, which has been the most active.
Well, when I was there was. I mean, I've only ever been once, and one of the things that have you been there before?
Yeah, I've been several times now.
And one of the things my actual kind of job is I've worked in the theatre since I was 18, and. It's one of them interesting things where there's apparently half of the building is supposed to be positive and half it's negative. But I must say, when we was in the substage area, I thought it was a really oppressive area, particularly some of the spirits that are apparently down there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the spirits that you seem to encounter in that area quite often is apparently the spirit of an old stage manager. Yeah. And brings quite a dark feeling with him. And I mean, it's obviously it's underground. There's no lights, and it's quite a dark area of the building. And anyway, but when you go down there, you literally cannot see your hand in front of your face. We've had trigger objects thrown at guests. Guests have had their hair pulled. I've actually seen a figure down there as well. And I was down there on my own at one point doing a pre-investigation walk around.
Right. Jamie, do you actually use mediums in your group? Do you take mediums along with you, or a medium, sorry?
We do, well, occasionally, yes. I mean, Gareth and I, we are sensitives anyway. So we do occasionally pick up on certain things. Yeah. But yeah, we do, not on every event, but on some events we do take mediums with us. Just for instance, we were at another location in Morecambe, which was the Park Hotel, and there when we took our guest photo, we actually had an extra person in the photo. Wow. And actually it was in Chat It's Fate magazine in the summer edition.
Yeah, super.
So we were contacted for that photo. There was a medium with us on that night, and she picked up that it was actually the spirit of a gentleman who passed away in the 1970s in a fight outside of the Park Hotel. So we checked up that story, and it's actually a true story. So it was quite interesting that face of that spirit, of what we believe to be a spirit, showed up in that photograph. So we kind of felt quite honoured that we captured that.
And what did the face actually look like? Was it really clear, or?
It was, yes. It was very. The thing that brought it to our attention was the fact we were just glancing at we always take three photos in quick succession.
Yeah.
So just in case we do pick anything up, we've got something to go back to compare it to.
Of course.
So we were looking through the 3 photos, and the first one was normal. There's nothing of interest. The second one was normal, and the third one, we just kind of looked, and I said there's too many people in there. So we counted them up. We had 30 people there, but there was actually 31 in the photo.
Yeah.
And we checked with the group of guests that the face was behind, and they confirmed that there was absolutely nobody stood behind them.
Wow.
But it was such a strange look. It was just very, very pale.
Yeah.
And it sort of pale blank look, but when you zoomed in closer on the actual face, there was kind of no features there, just eyes.
Whoa.
It was a bizarre
creepy.
photo.
Because
there
was a well-known one relatively recently, wasn't there, where I think it was a group of friends, and I don't know whether you've seen this one, where there was it looked like a small child who was peering out at the side. And did you see
I've seen that one. Yeah.
I have seen that one myself, actually.
Yeah, that was really creepy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in somebody's house, wasn't it? And there was a little child on the end who was unhappy.
And then there was like a
little child who was
between the legs.
Between the legs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people often say, I mean, with regards to these photos, that that it's something to do with the lighting, etc. It's a shadow.
Yeah.
But I've said that myself about photographs, but when you actually take a photo like that yourself, it's just remarkable.
But don't you find though, Jamie? I mean, I know myself with having a group as well, is when you get these kind of pictures, and that thing or that person's not disrespectful with the thing, whatever's in the picture, that you took that picture. But with the technology now, we've mentioned this before, me and James. With the technology now, it's more difficult to prove than it ever has been, because people can add photographs with Photoshop, with the apps you can get on your phone. It's just so much more harder.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's just, you can take so many different cuts from photos, add people into photos that isn't even in the photo. It's just amazing what you can do. So I can kind of get why people are so skeptical about them.
It's true. I mean, I've seen it so many times. I mean, we've seen pictures in newspapers where people have, and they've added the picture. They've added, it's been added.
There's some you see and you think, but it's like you're saying, Jamie. When you actually take something yourself, and you're the one who's taking it, and that there's nothing on there that could have caused that particular image to happen, then that for me is is somebody interested in the field is the best experience then, because then you're genuinely left with the question, what actually is that? And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, that's what the paranormal is. It's the unknown, and there's no explanation for why things happen.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of us doing what we do, is to try and find that explanation.
Exactly.
But after all these years, there's no explanation there.
Yeah. Jamie, with your group, what kind of technology do you use? And do you separate the groups into like a technical side, a medium side, and just the your own sensors side? Do you understand what I mean? Different groups, or
absolutely.
Do you leave the?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we break our nights down into many different ways, so people get to experience each angle of the paranormal. So we go with the more up to date methods, like you mentioned, with the electronics such as EDIs, SLS cameras, K2 meters.
So Jamie, for anyone who's not familiar with, I know we've been talking about kind of K2 stuff. If anyone who's not familiar with an EDI, what actually is an EDI?
So an EDI, it's quite a newish device, and what the EDI it's quite a good piece of equipment actually. It's a number of pieces of equipment in one. So it picks up the EMF, a bit like a K2.
Yeah.
And there's lights on there when it hits different strengths. It picks up on temperature changes.
Right.
So it also has a display on there as well, which shows what temperature you are. So sometimes people say, when you get an energy present, the temperature can drop.
Yeah.
So if that's placed in that room and you feel a sudden drop in temperature, which you can clearly see because you'll get blue lights that flash, and then also the temperature on the LED display will also change. So that then kind of gives you a bit more confirmation that maybe there is something going on here, like maybe there's an energy present.
Yeah.
And it'll also pick up on vibrations as well. So if it's on a stone floor, which is particularly good, you can place that on the stone floor, and if somebody's hearing footsteps, and along with that you're getting the vibration flashing, it's quite a good sign that you've got something going on there.
Of course,
right.
Yes.
I've got to ask you, Jamie, what is your favourite bit of item that you use on your investigations?
For me, I do like the electronics, but for me, I love the good old-fashioned ghost hunting. I love. There's nothing better than just using yourself as a piece of equipment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, there's nothing better than yourself, because the best piece of technology you can take with you is you.
Absolutely. I just love just doing a watch and wait vigil, just sitting there, using your own senses, because you can see so much when you're just sitting there. You can feel so much. I just love doing the old-fashioned watch and wait vigils.
Well, when I think about it, Jamie, I mean, I had something happen to me relatively recently, where I was out a haunted location, and I saw something, and it was one of them scenarios where you've not got a camera with you, and you don't pick up on camera, and it was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. And basically, it was a ball of light that flashed for about a second, and to describe it, it was bright white light like a camera flash, and it had like a green kind of halo, and it flashed, and there was no. It was all stone where it was. There was no possible source for that to come from, and I've never seen anything like that before. And that wasn't. And when you kind of think to yourself, God, I wish I'd have just been because I was going to have my camera on. I just thought I wish I'd been recording, and I didn't. And I was saying to Jamie the other day when I was telling him about it, I actually got in that night, and I can always sleep fine after I've been doing any investigation stuff. But genuinely, I couldn't get to sleep because I was so baffled as to what had actually caused that. Isn't that insane? It's mad, isn't it?
It is, absolutely is. I mean, I've caught so much, seen so much, light anomalies that just can't be explained.
Yeah.
And like yourself, that just come out of nowhere, like from brickwork. So,
yeah.
What could that possibly be?
I mean, who knows? I mean, I even started thinking to myself, it was a bit stormy out. Could it have been something to do with electricity in the ground? When you kind of when lightning strikes and stuff. I was racking my brains trying to think about it because it wasn't kind of if sometimes if you're filming on a camera and you've got a light on, you'll see dust going past that's lit up by the light and it reflects to the camera. There was no light sources here. It literally just went bump and flashed, and it was one of the strangest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, and again, I'm a big believer in the stone tape theory. So I'm a big believer that any fabric can absorb an energy. So what goes on in these buildings, is this the energy that the building has absorbed, and is that the energy you're seeing exiting the stone? The
stone, absolutely, yeah.
Jamie, there's two of us in the room now, and I'm getting a bit confused. I feel like I'm talking to myself.
It wouldn't be the first time, would it really?
Yeah. Jamie, in your, I know you do paranormal investigations every week. The question I'm going to ask you now is, are you a skeptic? Are you a believer? Or are you on the fence? Or, it's like me. I'm a 100% believer, but I have to think logically as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I am a believer. However, I will always try and find a rational explanation, so I will never put everything down to being paranormal. If there's something I don't think is quite right, I will always say, I'm not too sure about that. I'm not going to jump in straight away and say, oh, yeah, it's definitely paranormal. Particularly, you have to be like that as well when running public events. Not everybody wants to be don't want to be seeing you put everything down to being paranormal.
No, of course, absolutely, yeah.
I fully agree there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am, really open-minded, a believer, but I will always try and find the explanation where possible.
And do you find that, obviously, you run a lot of public events? Do you find that do you ever have anyone who attends the events who want to purely debunk everything, or do you find that most people are pretty open-minded to the experience of it?
You do quite often get quite a lot of people that either get dragged along with their partners or whatever.
Right.
They're quite clearly, they're not open-minded at all.
Yeah.
And they'll put everything, down to, they'll find an explanation for everything, even when there was quite clearly no explanation there. That's not always a bad thing, because it keeps everybody else grounded as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But that negative energy can have an impact on the evening, believe it or not. Jamie, I don't know if you've experienced that before, but a lot of negative energy can have an impact.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it can really limit what activity you do get.
Well, I think the thing is what can happen is, I always say, if we're running vigils to people, if you experience anything, don't be embarrassed to say you've experienced it. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Just if you think you've experienced something, because it could be that somebody else has had exactly the same thing, and if both of you don't say it, then you'll just go home and think, oh, I experienced this, but nobody else did. But actually, it could be that 3 people in the room have experienced the same thing. But if none of them say anything, then nobody knows, And I think it's like you say, isn't it? I think it's having that balance. But sometimes, I know I've seen it, if people are being negative about stuff, I think it can have an impact on other members of the group, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And then on the other hand, we've had complete and utter skeptics turn up, and they've left a believer.
Yeah, which is great,
so,
isn't it?
It swings and roundabouts, really.
And the other thing as well, Jamie, I don't know whether you've had it in your investigations, is you gain an experience exactly the same, but when the other person goes like that, I've just seen movements and it was this, and this, and you've seen exactly the same, but you don't want to say because you feel as if you're following in their footsteps, if you understand what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. You just, quite often people will think that you're just jumping in there because maybe nothing's happened for quite a significant number of, maybe for an hour nothing's happened, and then all of a sudden somebody thinks they've seen something, and then you're jumping on the back of that. People sometimes think it's just to make it look interesting. Mm-hmm.
That's so true there. I've done it before where I've heard people say something and I've thought, oh, I'm not going to say something now because I feel like I'm copying them. But we've had the times where we both said it at the same time, and you think, well, that's great. We both said it virtually the same time.
And I think the key is just making sure, if for people, such as if we're leading things, is making sure that it's balanced for everyone, and that's the real. From my point of view, and I think a lot, all the groups I've met are really good at doing this, where they will make sure that it's a balanced opinion, so it's not, oh, this is definitely paranormal, or this is definitely not paranormal. Everyone thinks about it, and that's great to kind of evaluate stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And one thing we always do, we always respect, other people's opinions.
Yeah.
If one person doesn't think it's anything but another does, then we respect both of those opinions.
Yeah. Because everyone sees things differently. Jamie, I've got to ask you. I've got to also ask you about your partner, Gareth. The partner who works with you with the group. Yeah. Tell us a little bit, because he's not there to talk. So just tell us a little bit about Gareth, because he's probably sitting there at home going, "Why aren't I mentioned?"
Yeah. So Gareth is again, he's been investigating for about 17 years. And again, after we first went on to this investigation, quite a number of years ago now, we both came back and we sat down around a kitchen table over a cup of coffee, and came up with the idea of running our own public events.
Yeah.
And it was very hard work to build it up, etc.
Yeah.
But with pure determination, we've done it, and it keeps growing and growing. So I think Gareth, he's always had the interest. He's like I say, he's done lots of investigations over the years, and when we couldn't think of anything better to do than create this group, because it's something that we both love.
Yeah. And is it your full-time job, or do you have another kind of day job and do this as an extra thing?
So it's we have other jobs as well. So Gareth's a deputy head teacher.
Yeah.
And myself, I also work in education as well.
Yeah.
So we kind of do that during the day, come home, work on organising paranormal events.
Yeah.
And then go off ghost hunting during the weekend. So we don't really get a lot of free time.
So you keep yourselves busy. You know what I would love, and I'm sure Jamie Williams, Jamie would agree. It'd be great for us one night for me, you, and Jamie and Gareth to go down to Mill Street on our own and just see what, and each go in different rooms and see what we get. That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Are you up for that?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. It's not far for us to go. We're only around the corner as well. Our office is based in St Helens Town Centre. So,
great.
We're not far away at all. So we'd absolutely love to do that, and just do something like that after not being able to do it for so long would be amazing. Well,
we'll get in touch with you after the show. And we'll get something in the diary.
Absolutely.
So, Jamie, just before we go, could you tell us how people can get in touch with you? Either on the website, Facebook, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on all social media platforms. So we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and our website, all bookings, etc., and inquiries can come through our website, which is theothersideparanormalgroup.com. And you can see all our upcoming events on there. And also you can book our upcoming events on there also.
Brilliant. That's
Great
fantastic. Stuff. So, you've been in lockdown for quite a while. Have you got anywhere booked? Are you going anywhere soon?
So the next one we've got is it's at the Four Crosses Inn in Cannock. That's on the 3rd of October.
And is there any spaces?
Unfortunately, that one is fully booked because it is quite a popular place.
Yeah.
Our next one after that is the 17th of October, which is at Stanley Palace in Chester.
Oh, great!
Fantastic.
And there are places available on that one. Again, it's another great location. We only actually started doing that this year in February.
Right.
So
you didn't get long to do anything there then.
And there's quite a lot there, that we can uncover together.
Yeah.
So, what was that you said then, James?
I was just saying. So you didn't get long. You started in February, so you wouldn't have had long to kind of get used to it then.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's still very new to us.
Yeah.
And it's we're looking forward to getting back there and uncovering what we can with all of our guests. So yeah, we're pretty much looking forward to going back to that one. And then, of course, the 23rd of October, we're at good old Mill Street.
Oh, great.
Where's that by any chance?
If any of the listeners of this show don't know about Mill Street Barracks by now, I don't know what they've been listening to. Well, listen, Jamie, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to join us. It's very much appreciated. I know everyone have enjoyed hearing more about you and about the company as well. So thank you so much, and hopefully, as I say, we'll get in touch and we can pop down to Mill Street and do a little invest all together. That'd be fantastic, won't it?
Yeah, that would be brilliant, and it was a pleasure to talk to you both.
Yeah, and it's going to be really good to see you again, Jamie. It's been a while now.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Jamie. We'll speak to you soon, and take care, buddy.
So that was Jamie, a really nice fella, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again. It's been a while since I last saw him due to the lockdown.
You know what, Jamie? I've not met Jamie before. It's so confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know what? It'd be great, and I think us doing an investigation together would be fantastic, because they obviously are so knowledgeable and interested in what they're doing, and obviously, you know, when it's safe and we can, you know, resume investigations again, that's going to be something I'm really going to look forward to.
It'd be nice to, not just Jamie, you know, with other people as well. It's going to be good fun. But I'm looking forward to doing it with Jamie, because I've seen him and I've seen a little bit of his work, but usually I'm just leaving him behind.
Of course. Now, we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show that we was going to discuss kind of different types of haunting. And as I said, you know, I think certainly before I learnt more about the paranormal, I just thought, you know, a ghost was just something that kind of, you know, drifted down the dark hallways of an old drafty castle. But actually, there's lots of different types of haunting, and I think the first one to discuss, and you know, we haven't got the time to cover them all today, and we can cover more in future shows, but I think there's kind of what we would call residual energy and active. Now, my understanding is the difference is residual energy is energy of a place. So almost if there's been, for example, you know, when you hear about where there's been a historic battle, and on certain occasions people have seen almost seen a replay of the battle.
Of it, like a video of
like
it,
a
really.
video playing back of the battle. Now, the theory with that is that that's not necessarily a load of ghosts fighting each other.
No.
Some people call it the stone tape theory, don't they? It's almost as if that particular event has imprinted itself into the energies of that area, and under certain conditions it replays. So a really good example of this is there's a place in St Helens called Taylor Park, and there's a well-known local ghost there called the Grey Lady of Taylor Park. Now, I've read a few things about it, and the accounts I've read, she's kind of seen walking down, and I wonder whether is that an active apparition that's aware of itself, or is it just a replay of somebody who many years ago used to walk along that area?
Or is it like, you know, in them like residual ones, I think of like, if the residual, is it an anniversary, is it a date of the death, or is it, you know, it could be anything like that. Because you've heard it so many times of people who said, "Oh, I was there at this time and this happened." Yeah. And you go, "Oh, yeah, that was the date
the day that
blah blah blah." Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that you know, the interesting one is that if you was to see an apparition which was of residual energy or stone tape, then it wouldn't ever interact with you. It would just do the same thing, because it's just almost a recording, isn't it? It's almost like if you play a video over and over again, the video will stay the same.
It's repeating that
and
history.
It repeats, and it's almost like history repeating itself, really, isn't it?
I mean, the good one of that was it over in York when they had the Roman soldiers going through?
They were seen marching
up to the waist.
Yeah, because they were almost marching where obviously the level of the ground had changed.
It changed,
but that was just a replay of them. And as I say, if you'd have kind of looked at them, they would have just gone straight. You know, when you say about a ghost going through the wall, they would have just gone straight through you, because it's just a recording, basically.
Well, I've seen an interview with someone regarding the one in York. Yeah. And he said he was just standing there, and it was as if, you know, he was there, and they were just carrying on the normal duties.
Now, the difference between a residual energy and an active energy is that an active energy is in theory, as people would say, as they say, that it's the actual spirit of a person. So it's a conscious thing.
Yeah, it's got an intelligence.
It's got an intelligence to it, and that's when you do a paranormal event and you would ask for evidence. So, you know, can you make a sound or whatever? That is aware of what you're saying and will then be able. Hopefully, we would hope to interact. Yeah. Now, you had an experience where you saw something like that, didn't you?
Yeah, it was quite a few years ago now. I was going somewhere. There was a meeting in Liverpool. Yeah. And I'll tell you when it was. It was when they were demolishing Paradise Street. You know,
when
they were changing
all
the hotel,
the Liverpool one and everything. Yeah.
And I was going down Paradise Street, and I thought, I know a quick route through to where I'm going. Yeah. And as I was walking, I thought, it's all changed a little bit round here. So what happened then is I seen this woman walk along, and like she looked like she was working. She had like a full a top on and everything. It was matching, like an office kind of outfit. Yeah. And she had like a little I'll say it's a suitcase. It was one of those little cases, what they used to carry around with. Yeah. And I was looking, I thought, oh, I'll follow her. She seems to know where she's going, which, you know, you do. You think, oh, follow that person.
Yeah, because they're walking with a purpose kind of thing.
So I started walking and I was following this girl. And it sounds strange, I know, but I thought she was going where she was going. So anyway, I followed her. And we come up to this, they put like a huge fence up across the road. Because obviously they were doing work on the other side. And she just disappeared. And I was thinking, well, where's she gone? And I was thinking to myself, did I take my eye off her?
Yeah.
Off her? I don't, you know, and you stop still all of a sudden. Anyway, as I was standing there, I was thinking, I must have seen something. Took my eye off her and she's disappeared.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I'm standing there, this fella comes over to me. He taps me on my shoulder and he said, "Did you see what I just seen?" I was thinking, I looked at him. I thought, well, this is a bit strange. You know, why is he asking me that? So I said, "I don't know what you mean, mate." So he said, "Did you not see what I saw?" And I said, "No." He said, "I saw you." And he said, "And you were walking behind this girl." And he said, and he described it the same as what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And he said, "I actually saw her vanish in front of you. She just completely vanished in front of you."
So strange.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Now, the question I would say for that is that an active energy or is it residual energy? Is it a recording of somebody who, you know, in the past used to walk that route to work every day, and it just so happened that for whatever reason that's been imprinted in that atmosphere?
Yeah, and well, I spoke to someone about this. It was actually Tom Slemon I was talking to.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was just thinking about that because I know, obviously, we've mentioned Tom's books before, and Tom's done loads of writing on time slips, hasn't he? And, you know, could it be that it's actually somebody from a different time that you've seen?
When I spoke to him about it, and I mean, he came back with something quite logical. He said, well, at the moment, there's a lot of work going on down there, because if you remember rightly, they were doing the dock sections. They were doing all them, and like, they were renovating the whole of Paradise Street, and he said, it could have stirred up the energies, because the buildings are going. And obviously that girl was just carrying on to work.
Wouldn't it be interesting? And this, I think the whole time slip discussion is so fascinating. It's certainly one that warrants a show all to itself, actually.
We'll definitely do that.
Imagine if you was walking through there again now, and that cut through is still there, and you saw that woman walking through, going on her way to work. Now that would be a completely different thing than a ghost. That would almost be viewing something that was yet to happen. That's really interesting, isn't it?
I had a really strange experience, must be 15 years ago, but I'm going to leave that because I think we will do one on time slips.
I think we should.
And I'll keep that story for that one. It's a really good one as well. Now we're going to be joined by a very good friend of mine and our next guest, Lynn Murphy, over there in Connors Quay. Hello, Lynn. I'm fine. That was a lovely posh voice you put on there, Lynn.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And how are you? It's been a long time since we've last spoken. Last time we saw you, we were over in Wepre Park, which we're going to be talking about later on anyway. So how are you anyway?
I'm absolutely fine. Yes, missing all the guys. I do miss you all. Wish we could get together a bit more because... you know, we've been knowing each other now for a long, long time, haven't we?
Oh, must be 15 years.
We've had a lot of paranormal experiences together, a lot of laughs, and a lot of really good experiences.
We certainly have, and the one we're going to be talking about tonight is a place that you are an absolute expert on, and I know because I've been there loads of times with you, and that's Wepre Park.
That's right. I love Wepre Park. I was born in Connors Quay, and I've grown up there basically, but as I got older I got a real desire to learn the history of it, so it's sort of been like part of my life where I'm trying to find the mysteries of all the ghost stories that goes with the place, the actual history, and it all blends in together, and it's a wonderful story. And it's, you know, no wonder Wepre is, it's like the diamond of Flintshire basically, because it's a wonderful place. Everybody seems to be going there lately, and it's a great place to take your family.
It certainly is, and we've been there daytime and nighttime. Nighttime, it's really spooky, especially when you've got the castle also in almost in the middle of the place.
Yes, that's right. They've got a castle at Wepre Park, but it's on the Ulo side of the park. Now, this castle was originally built, it was originally a Motte and Bailey castle, but Owain Gwynedd when he became king, he actually finished the castle. So when he became king in 1137, this is part of the history. He actually took over from his father, who died. Now, Owain, if you want me to tell you some of the history of this, Jamie.
Oh, yes,
please do.
Yes. Owain's brother, Cadwallader, ap Gruffydd. Now, he went against his family and he went to join forces with Ranulph, Earl of Chester. So we went against the Welsh people. Now, Henry II, he decided to invade Gwynedd, which was part of, Anglesy's part of there.
Yeah.
And he wanted to stop Owain from expanding his empire into North Wales. So Henry had support from two very influential people, which was Madoc ap Meredydd and the Prince of Powys, and Owain's younger brother, Cadwallader. Cadwallader turned against the Welsh family. And what happened was, Owain was based at Basingworth in Greenfield. And he heard that King Henry II had taken an army of 30,000 men, and they were camped at Chester. Anyway, Henry was taking these men over to Anglesey, and that they were led by Henry Fitzroy. So Henry took a smaller army of men, and because he wanted to take Rhuddlan Castle.
Right.
So they went through Saltley Marshes, and they were heading towards Rhuddlan Castle. So what happened then was, Owain Gwynedd heard that Henry was on his way over. So Owain had sent another 3,000 men over to Wepre Woods, which is by Euro Castle.
Yeah.
Euro Castle is in Wepre Woods, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Owain had already had two of his sons there, and they were Dafydd and Cunnan. And they had quite a large army there in the woods. Now, the woods as it is now wasn't as it was then. It was like a 7-mile block of forest. So Owain went with this smaller army that he took over to help support his sons. There was 200 extra men there, and he wanted to reinforce the army. So when Henry's army came over, all 3,000 of them, what happened was he attacked, and Owain's army attacked Henry's army. So they had a big battle in the woods, and it's known as Coles Hill Battle.
Right.
And it was just, from what we know, it was just, the whole place was running with blood. Now, our Welsh army literally slaughtered all the English at this battle. Now, Henry II narrowly avoided being killed, actually, but he was rescued by Roger, Earl of Hertford. If it wasn't for that man, he could have changed history. So anyway, he took him out. So what happened was, a few days later, Henry took Rhuddlan Castle, and then Owain was made to bow to him, and Cadwallader, Owain's brother, was given his land back, and they all made friends, and everybody got back on again. So what's happened since then, it's sort of, through the years, there's many, many, many stories which have come out from the woods of ghosts. So why would they actually have ghosts there? Well, number one, there's a lot of soldiers who were killed there, and we think, from what we know and what we have found, they're still running around there. They are actually haunting the place.
Well,
it's as you know, Jamie, I've taken you there.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat you at certain places. You've had people have had their hair felt.
Yeah.
There's people who've heard drums. I've heard drums. I never believed the story myself. I did not believe the story that people have heard drums until I actually heard it myself, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. Now, the noise what I heard, it sounded like really old-fashioned military drums. Now, these military drums were being played. I heard them. They were down by the bottom of the castle. Now, at the bottom of the castle now, they've got a stone bridge. That never used to be there. That stone bridge was not there. It was further back into the woods.
Right.
But a lot of people have said that they've heard these drums in that area. Now, that's where the battle was played out.
Wow.
That was where the battle was played out. Now, I've done a winter solstice there once.
Yeah.
With my team that I had. And when we were there, we heard all this noise. Now, I don't believe anything. I have to talk myself out of what it could be.
Yeah.
And until I know exactly what it is. Now, some person that was with us said, "Oh, can you hear hooves like horses?" So I said, "Well, there's farms up there. It could be cows." Because when people go on ghost hunts, they want to find ghosts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they want to find.
Yeah.
And some people, that's all they want to do.
Yeah.
They, don't think about what it could be. So people were hearing different things. But all of a sudden, we heard, it sounded like hundreds and hundreds of men shouting. It was deafening. And it sounded like they were hitting the chest or hitting something. And do you know when you see films where they all go into battle and before the charge, themselves up? That's what it sounded like.
Wow.
And we were and we never even recorded that.
Yeah.
We were gobsmacked. There's that. So there is stuff happening there. Now, I've also been told about balls of light. Now, I'm not convinced that these are spirits. I think these are something else, maybe UFO influences. I don't know, but there has been incidents there with this going on. We've also had sounds of a woman who walked on the other side of the stream. As we never seen her, but we heard her, and she was singing. I have never heard singing as beautiful as that in my life. She was singing operatic songs. She walked opposite us for about maybe 50 foot, and then it stopped. And we were gobsmacked. We were singing back. She was singing to us. Never experienced anything like that before. It was beautiful. We've heard flutes being played. We've heard everything. But there are lots of legends and fables which have been passed down. There's thousands of people visit that place every year.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest fables, well, a legend really, is Nora the Nun.
Oh, right.
Now, Nora the Nun, everybody says they've seen Nora the Nun. She had a baby and it drowned, and then others say, well, she found a baby and the baby died and then she killed herself. There's that many different sections, and people. But anyway, I've been researching this for a long time, and I was looking on the internet, and I found this blog, and people were writing in, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we love Wepre Park. Remember when we were kids and we went there every Good Friday with a bottle of water and our jam butties and we went to the castle." It's a yearly thing people do. And there's people all over the world, they've gone from Connaskey or Shot and they've moved away, but they still remember Nora the Nun.
Yeah.
This guy actually went on this blog and he said he has never ever been to Connaskey, but he does have his family legend which connects in there. Now, I looked into this, and this guy said that his ancestors were French. Now, this lady who was
Right.
Halfway through the journey, she was found by one of her brothers, and she begged him, please don't send me back. I can't marry a man I don't love.
Yeah.
So she said, let us off at the next port of call, and I promise you I will never ever return home. And they did, and they dropped her off at Connors Quay docks.
Right.
So within the week, she got herself a job at Wepre Hall, because they had a big Wepre Hall there.
Yeah.
And she got a job as a chambermaid. Now, his family said that she had a baby to the master of the house, but they don't know what happened to her baby. Now, that got my head thinking a bit, yeah? And I'm thinking, well, maybe this is the young woman who had the baby that this Nora, who was a nun, had found. Well, they wouldn't have had nuns, they had sisters.
Yeah, yeah.
The sisters were like nurses, and they looked after the family and all the staff.
Yeah.
They did live in a little house. There was a little house which was up in the fields, and it got washed away. And I've been talking to people who remember it, but it was washed away in a big storm. So that was the end of that. But I'm thinking, because this French lady who had been taken advantage of, she could easily have hidden that pregnancy, Jamie, because in Victorian times, I should say, in the late 1800s, they used to wear these really big frocks.
Yeah.
Now, that was easy for her to hide a pregnancy. Now, she couldn't tell anybody she was pregnant because she'd have got the sack.
Well, she absolutely.
She'd been thrown out. She had no family. She had nobody. She was on her own. She was French. Nobody would have accepted her in the area. Now, if you get pregnant, if you would have got pregnant then, they'd have put you in a mental institution and taken your baby off you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they did. It's a fact. So what she's most probably done to save her own neck, she's given birth to that baby in the woods and gone back to work. One of the nurses has found, this is the story that I think's happened. The nurse has found the baby. She's washed the baby.
Yeah.
The baby's died.
Right, because of exposure.
The cold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is cold there, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's happened. Now, she's most probably felt such guilt that she's thrown herself off a high point, which would have been a place called Red Rock.
Yeah.
Now, off there, it's over 100-foot drop into the stream. So that's quite, I think that I'm looking into the fables, because there's no smoke without fire.
Yeah.
There never is smoke without fire. So that's Nora the Nun. Now then, other stories up there, which are really, really interesting. There is an Angarad connection with the castle. Now, people say they've seen a lady along the top road, which leads from Connors Quay to North Paul. It's a tiny, we call it the Wibbly Wobbly Lane. It's a little tiny lane that cuts through. And there's a lady who's seen there often, and they say her name's Angarad, which goes back to lots of fables that we hear about Angarad. Now, I've looked at Angarad as well. Now then, in 1400, there was an Angarad who was actually born at Wepre. Her mother and father was Cunrig and Gladys. Cunrig was born at Wepre in 1330, and Gladys was born in Northup in 1370. So another Angarad had parents who were David, who was born in Golston, Connors Quay, and he married a Catherine Edwards, who was born in Northup, and they had an Angarad who was born in 1450. So there could have been any of them Angarads, but there's also an Angarad who had her throat slit.
Oh, gosh.
At the castle. She lived in a little
Yeah.
And she was inside the house and somebody came in and killed her, so it could have been her. But there have been spirits which have been seen coming out of the walls. And there's a guy who used to be the custodian of the castle, because in the late 60s and early 70s, they used to have somebody sat in a little shed on the other side of the castle grounds.
Right.
And people that used to come in from the ULO side had to pay 5 pence to get in.
Right, okay.
Not like, because we used to jump the walls. When you're a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
I still would.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to get over that wall now, Jamie Williams.
I wouldn't be able to do it now, no.
It's like a ladder.
Anyway, this guy called Mr. Brooks, he was a custodian, and he had a lot of bad experiences there with spirits, which he'd seen, and most of it was happening when it was storms.
Right.
And he wrote about this. He narrated it himself.
Yeah.
And it was about 1970 when he had all these experiences. So that's there to be seen as well.
Yeah.
Now, I was asked many years ago to make or get together a little paranormal group. I didn't want to, but this is how it started me, because, as you know, Jamie, I'm quite psychic, and I'm very, I pick up on a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you really go deep into it as well, don't you?
I do, yeah, I do. So anyway, cut a long story short, I went up with this couple who were married, and they're the ones who wanted me to help them get this paranormal group going. So I said, well, you've got to do your work first. You've got to learn about. So we went up. It was a November afternoon. It was snowing, and we walked up to the castle. And as we stood on the castle steps, we looked out towards Ulo, so that you're looking out onto fields.
Mm-hmm.
And on my peripheral vision, I could see a guy in the woods walking between the trees. Every time I looked, he'd gone, but he was still there in my peripheral vision. And I didn't think much of it. Anyway, that night when I'd gone to bed, I had a dream about this guy. I was stood on the same steps in my dream, and this guy came to me in my dream, and he said that his name was Emily. And he said, I want to show you how I died. So I'm sort of like, oh, what's going on here now? And this guy then threw himself. He was an archer. He had all this gear on.
Yeah.
And he looked quite like a tramp, to be honest with you. Scruffy clothes. Anyway, he was on the floor, and this young lad appeared. This is in my dream, right? Yeah. Young lad appeared, and he ripped this Emmeline's heart out. And it was like real to me. In the dream, it was real. So it scared me. So I run, and as I run, I started floating. And the next thing I knew, I was stood in my one of my friend's bedrooms. Now, I'd never been to her house. I don't know where she lived, right? So I actually worked with this woman. Yeah. And in my dream, I was in this box room, and I could see. I could see all these orbs flying around. And the door opened, and my friend came in. She said, what the hell are you doing in here? What are you doing here, Lynn? I said, I don't know. Yeah. I said, I can see orbs. I don't know if it's dust. I'm still trying to, I'm still always deciding, it's dust, it's water, it's insects, or is it a spirit, I said, can you see them? She said, yeah. Next thing, a man walks into the room, and it's Emily. And he's got a big beard, and he's got all his clothes on. Yeah. And next thing, I woke up, so I thought, what a strange dream. So that day, I went to work. I worked in Chester then, and I seen my friends at dinner time. And I said, I've got a story to tell you. Really weird dream about you last night. She said, oh, let me tell you, I had a funny dream about you. She said, you were in my house, in my box room, looking for orbs.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And she said, and I asked you what you were doing there, and you said, I don't know, I'm looking at these orbs to decide what they are. So the next thing she said, this man walks in. And she said he looked like a right tramp. I said, what did he look like, Christ? And she described him to a T, and it was Emily.
Wow. So Lynn, do you think that was some kind of astral projection then that happened there?
Well, it's happened to me for years. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Lynn, there's another story about Wepre as well, isn't it? Was it your son Simon who saw something? I remember you telling me, but wasn't he with his girlfriend or something? And he was walking through.
What happened was, my two sons and their mate had gone up to Buckley to see my niece playing in a band at the TIV. Yeah?
That's right, yeah.
They never had no money, had enough to get in and enough for the pint, because they wanted to go and see the cousin. So they went up there, so they walked home. So they walked through Buckley, cut through the lanes and went through the top end of ULO. So if they cut through past the castle, they could go up the other steps the other side and up to the top of Wepre and walk home that way, yeah? So that's what they done. Now, I was at home, and it was, I don't know, about 11:30, 11:45, and the door burst open. And my two sons come in, one after the other, and they were crying and panicking. And I said, what the hell's happened? They said, you never believe it. And then their mate comes in, and he sat there crying. They were petrified. So I asked them what's gone on, because I started getting a bit worried about this. And they said they cut through from ULO, down the back of the castle, over the stone bridge. But as they got by the stone bridge, they started hearing drums, and it was deafening. And it frightened them. So as they run up the steps towards the top of the old golf course, something caught their eye on the right-hand side. And as they all looked, they seen a massive ball of light. And it was orange, green and blues. And it was rotating. They said it was about 6 foot off the floor. And it was just changing shapes. And then it just flew off.
Wow.
And it scared them. They were petrified.
Oh, they would be.
Yeah, they were absolutely petrified. And you know, I said before about I'd heard these drums. Yeah. Now this is how I heard them, because I didn't believe everything, and because people keep going on about these drums. Now, how I heard them, I was out one night. We done a vigil. Me and this couple had done a vigil up at the castle. And I got my new night vision camera, so I was using it. So you get to a certain point when you come out of the woods, you go round the corner and it feels, the energies there feel like they're actually taking you out, they're just making sure you get out of there. Yeah. You get this feeling of being literally thrown out of there. So I had my night camera on and I was filming behind me. So we got out the woods and we went and sat down by the swings. So I was having a drink of water, and the guy said to his wife, make me a fag, you know. So she made him a fag. So we were sitting there, and I could hear drums. There was no jam, just like 2:30 in the morning. This is freezing cold. There was no cars out, nothing. Everywhere was silent. But I heard these drums, and I pinpointed it to the bottom of the castle by the stone bridge. But I never said anything, because whatever I said to this couple, they agreed with me, and I didn't want to influence anything. So I sat there and said nothing. His wife said, I can hear drums. So I said, so can I. And he said, well, I can't. I said, well, we just heard them. And we talked together about it, and she'd heard exactly the same as what I'd heard. So then I knew that what my sons had heard, I'd heard the same thing.
Wow.
And lots of other people had heard it too.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And, you know, we're finding new things all the time. We found there was a spirit there of a little boy. Now, I haven't researched this, but we found that there was a young boy. There's a little tiny pond at the top of the Victorian, the Edwardian Gardens there, and we found a spirit of a little boy there called Peter. He was 9 years old, and he'd been drowned. Now, he was warned about going there by the gamekeeper, and that, you know, the people that looked after the place, and they said, don't let us find you again. And he went there with his mates. Anyway, he got killed. But it was all shut up. But I don't know, because I've got to look into that. That could be, you know, it could be something and nothing.
Yeah.
But the estates, you know, I mean, all that area used to belong to St. Werburgh's Abbey.
Right.
And when William the Conqueror came over, he gave a lot of the seats throughout Britain to his family.
Yes, of course he did, didn't he?
It's well known that there's a guy who looked after that place, and his name was William. Now, William the Conqueror's grandson was William de Malbec. Now, he was based in the Wirral, and it was his job to go round to different estates and that and get tithes off them, which were taxes.
Yes,
now,
of course.
These taxes, the landowners would have to give a third of their income to this guy who took it for the king.
Yeah.
And he used to do it, like, he was in charge of Wepre Park, all the little hamlets like Aston, Euro and Harden.
Yeah.
So he'd come over and take, so he would have been there then, you know, early times. And then there would have been a building where the old hall was, an early building, and then there was another one built, and the other one was owned by a guy called Fitzroberts, and his family lived there, and it was in the Civil War, and it was rumoured that there's Captain Edward Morgan stayed at the hall, who was a royalist for the British government, and he was there before he went to Chester to do the siege over there.
Yeah.
And then in 1776, Edward Jones, who was a lead miner from Holywell, built the George and Wepre Hall.
Right, I see.
Yeah, and then in 1830, Major Jones had Wepre Mill built in Killings Lane and Mill Lane, and those houses, the mill, them houses are still there, and people are living in them still at this time.
So, Lynn, what was Wepre Mill used for? What type of mill was it?
Well, they used to grind the corn there.
Right.
They used to make electricity, but they actually made their own electricity as well from the waterfall.
Right.
And they're looking at making something else like that now, you know, in case they need to rely on getting electricity. It has been talked about.
Yeah.
At the meetings and stuff, and it'd be
hydroelectric power kind of thing.
That, yeah.
So I mean, Lynn, I've never been to Wepre Park before. So in terms of the history of the hall and the castle, because it sounds absolutely fascinating. What is kind of left of the hall, you know, and the castle now, and what would they have been like originally when they were built?
Right. The hall is no longer there. It was taken down in 1960 because it was during the war. They had the Second World War. They had Air Force men and that living there.
Right.
It was like flats, but it had rotted. You know, it was just like timber. Really, it had rotted.
Yeah.
So in 1960, the council took it down. They bought it, took it down, and I think it was in the 80s. They built a visitor centre. But the visitor centre, they've sort of expanded on it now. It's an absolutely fantastic place to visit.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I haven't been to the visitor centre since we've had the lockdown, but I have walked through the woods, you know, because I'm there all the time. I live there, literally. So what's left of the old hall, really, is the cellars.
Right.
If you go downstairs underneath the visitor centre, you wouldn't be able to, you'd have to, you know, ask, but whether you get down there, I don't know. But at the back of there's a original part of the building, which is a cellar.
Wow.
But when they first built the place, I remember when it first opened, and I went down because somebody said they've got a tunnel there.
Ooh.
And there actually is a bit of a tunnel, but they've blocked it off now.
Yeah.
So it is there. Now, I don't know where this tunnel goes, but I have heard of older people that there was a tunnel going from there, which led out of the place. So it could have been some kind of an escape tunnel or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is there. So that's what's left of that. The visitor centre is fabulous. They have a cafe there.
Yeah.
They have toilets. It's the education centre. Got everything you want there. It's wonderful. The staff are good.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong with great place. Toilet facilities. The castle, it is in ruins, but it was bought back by Flintshire County Council a few years back now off Cadw, because they were the keepers of it.
Right.
So since we've had it back now, we've put new step-ins in, safety measures, we've put walls up, we've put fences up, metal fences.
Yeah.
But it's lovely. We've got signage everywhere, we've got storyboards, and it's just a lovely, lovely place to go.
Yeah.
It's just feel the place. But before they had the castle, there's a place there which is at the top of the old golf course where the steps are. It used to be an old fort.
Right.
So that would have been before the castle was even built yet.
Yeah.
So it's like across from the castle.
Yeah.
It's on a high point. And wonderful. I go there, it's so serene there, it's lovely.
Yeah.
But not many people know that was there, unless you actually know and look on an ordnance survey map. A lot of the rangers didn't even know it was there till I sent them to them. It's there. You've got to look. You've got to look and explore and look at your options to see what you can see and whether you're allowed to go to certain places. You've got to do your homework. You've got to look at these places.
Yeah. Well, I've been with you.
Wonderful.
Well, I've been with you quite a few times, Lynn, as well as with the group. And I remember one time when we went, and we went to the castle. And do you remember when I rang you up and I said, guess where we are? We're in Wepre Park. And you said, I'll be there in a minute. I think it was about midnight, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, it was.
And you said, I'm on my way. And I remember there was me, Marie, and a few of us at the back end of we were actually at the castle. And you said, meet us at the beginning of Wepre, where the centre is. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. It's pitch black, and I've got to walk through these woods.
I know that place like the back of my hand, don't I, Jamie? Everything there,
We actually, me and Marie actually walked up and met you, and I remember, I remember me and Marie walking through, and I think we got to where I'm not sure whether it was the bridge, like the bridge what goes over the river, or whether it was before that. I'm not sure whether the fountain, not the fountain, it's not a fountain, it's waterfall, where the waterfall is. And Marie went, dogs just ran in front of us there and threw into the trees. And I went, I didn't see that. I said, yeah, it looked like a white dog or something. And when we met you and we were walking back through the woods, back towards the castle, I did do my exercise that night. And I remember you saying when we got near the place, didn't you say there was a ghost dog or something there, what's been seen?
Yeah,
and,
that's another fable. And they are seen. See, what we do, right? What we do on Halloween, we do like a little play every year.
That's right, I went to one.
Yeah, you did, didn't you? So we sort of advanced it a bit now. So what we do, we have to have bookings because everybody and the dog come to that. But what happens is the parents love it more than the kids, I think. So what we do, we dress up. So we've got Emlyn the Archer, I'm the storyteller, along with another guy. We take it in turns. We've got Nora the Nun, and we've got the Keeper of the Woods, and we've got all sorts of these different characters. So when the kiddies come, they do a bit of a colouring and make a candle stand, right? So then they go on the tour, and I take them round, I'm like a witch, like a storyteller, take them round, and each person, like the Archer, tells them a story, Nora the Nun tells them a story, the Gatekeeper, and we make it like a pantomime. So we have to, we ask, can we go past? Oh, no, you can't go past now. It'll cost you. So we have to give them coins. And we get the children. I get this yes,
yeah.
you can. And we make it fun. So what we do then, we take them back to the visitor centre, and then they get taken up to a pond that we've got there called the Rosie. Now on the pond,
I know it.
Pumpkins all over the island, and we've got a boat which we've got lit up with skeletons and that in. So the children are taken there. It's all lit up in the dark, and they get their little drawings that they've made in candle boats, and we put candles in, and they light the candles and let the candles float all over the lake.
How good is that?
It's magic, isn't it?
And they go home and they love it.
Yeah.
And I think the parents love it more than anything else.
Well, the parents are probably
children, you know.
The parents are probably more scared than the kids as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I would be. And Lynn, I've got to say about Lynn, James, and you know, we went on a walk with Lynn. Lynn took us on a little bit of a history walk around Wepre Park.
Yeah.
I've never walked so many hills in all my life. And we've had some funny moments, haven't we, Lynn? Where, do you remember the time when we had Bill with us? And Bill, if I
come on, you've got to tell the story now.
Well, we'd done the walk across the top and everything, hadn't we, Lynn? And we come to this part, and Lynn said, "Just be careful here because it's a bit of a steep slope."
And it was raining, wasn't it?
It was raining, and it wasn't exactly a steep slope. It was hugely steep slope. And I'm behind Bill, and Lynn, like, she's like an athlete, honestly.
Bill is a member, for listeners who aren't familiar, Bill is a member of our ghost hunting group, isn't he? Yeah.
And like Lynn's like the Usain Bolt of walking, you know, she's if you don't keep up with her, you've lost in them woods forever. Yeah. Them ghosts are they're not from the past, they're from what Lynn's taken on walks. And and this day, it was a night time, wasn't it, Lynn? And we were walking, said, just be careful on these steps. And Bill being Bill, as you know Bill is, he slipped and he was just about to slide all the way down this hill, and I grabbed his rucksack and stopped him. So we managed to get him.
We all jumped to the side.
Yeah, and honestly, God, they'd have all been Skittles if we hadn't stopped them, you know. And we got him to the bottom, and we put the light on to see if he was all right, and he looked spotless, you know, from the front.
And the back of
nice and clean. When he turned around to the back, it was just a mud from his head to his feet. It was funny.
You know, it's just reminding me of that, and it's not. This isn't anything to do with paranormal. Lynn, I don't know how familiar you are with kind of round by us, but I went for a walk one day up Billings Hill to see the old beacon at the top because I wanted to take some photographs. It's a lovely old, you know, historic thing, and it's really interesting. And it was blowing a gale. As I turned round and it's dead steep, the wind blew me. It blew me over, and I slid from the top of it right the way down to the bottom, and I was covered in mud. I had to walk all the way back down, and people were walking up, and they were like, "You all right?" I'm like, "I'm fine, yeah."
Just embarrassed.
Just embarrassed.
But I mean, going back to Wepre Park, I mean, we've been through Wepre Park a few times with you, and it's been absolutely fantastic. And we've been there with different groups. I remember, I think it was Wigan Paranormal, and sadly the late Nicola Johnson. We were there. Yeah, she was brilliant. And we had a really good laugh that night, and we actually got to the castle, and it's one of those places where you can go back again and again and again. You know, you've got to be careful around there. You've got to be careful around Wepre Park anyway, especially in the dark. And I don't know what it is, Lynn. I think you set it up that the weather changes while we're in there, so it rains and rains and rains. Because I think we've only ever been there once where it's not rained. And you know, you've got the lots and lots of ghosts within Wepre Park. Now the one is going back to the castle, Ewell Castle. Have you got any information about what kind of ghosts are around the castle? You know, what's the history about the castle? Was it built before the hall? Was it built for a reason? Could you just let us know a little bit about that?
Well, it's just it was sort of like summer house, really. It wasn't meant or intended to be anything special. It was just somewhere for people, you know, whoever owned it to go and stay. It wasn't intended for anything really. But we're now going back to the ghost of the castle. We know we've got Angarad who's there, who I've tried to find the history on that, and going back to that Emlyn the Archer.
Yeah.
Right, I myself and my late sister, Sue, took a group of 25 people up there one September evening. It was absolutely throwing it down with rain. And we went up there, and there was a lot of people who'd never been on a ghost walk before. And we were all sat round the castle, and I was telling them stories, And then I told them the story about Emlyn, the archer. So I was stood exactly the same place as where I was in my story. So I shouted out, because they were all getting a bit nervous, and I shouted out, I said, Emlyn, if you'd like to come down and visit us, we've come to see you, why don't you come down and meet these people and have your photograph taken? Yeah. So I said, click away, everybody. So they were walking around the castle and exploring the place, and this girl that was in the team, she came up to me, she said, look at this, Lynn. She said, what is it? And I said, can I have that? She said, yeah. So she gave me this photograph, and I took it home and looked on the computer, and she captured, which is now mine, she's captured a picture of an archer, and he's got a lady with him.
Wow.
And it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, because you had one yourself. Yeah.
Pardon?
You had a picture of yourself as well. Did you compare them?
That's it. She gave me the picture. She gave it to me because she didn't want it, but it's absolutely wonderful. You can see the lady very clearly. She's a very pretty lady. And then next to it is stood a guy with an archer's cape on, he's got a big beard. It was Emlyn, it's the guy I've seen.
Wow. Yeah.
And you can see his legs, he's got a long cape on. And it looks like a big stick. I don't know whether it's a sword or
a bow,
or his arrows. Maybe his arrows in the.
But he's there, and I've got that.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And do you know what? I'm made up with that. So that's why we encompass that story into the fables of Wepre Park, because that guy is still there. Yeah. The spirit of that man is still there. Now, he said it to me in my dream that his name was Emlyn Richard. It wouldn't have been Emlyn Richard. It would have been Emlyn App, and then the name of his father. Yeah. So it could have been Emlyn in the reign of Richard, but I don't know.
Right, I see.
But I've tried looking, but I can't find.
But it's nice to keep these people, the memories alive. Without the likes of yourselves and other people, they'd be forgotten. These people would be forgotten, and the history of them is gone. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. If we didn't do what we're doing, it would be forgotten. Now, the place was vibrant, it was lived in, it had its own identity, people were born there, they lived there, they died there. The place is immense, and for somebody just to forget that's ever happened is just, to me, is awful.
Oh, it's so sad, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, would you want your family to be forgotten? No, you wouldn't.
No, not at all. Not at all. Lynn, I've got to ask you, obviously, you're so passionate about Wepre Park and all the history of it. What have you had paranormal experiences elsewhere, to other places that you've been to visit, or anywhere else where you've been?
Yes, I've had lots of experiences.
Oh, tell us about some.
Right. The really big one that I first had was when we went to quite a few. But Jamie, do you remember when we went to the secret nuclear bunker?
We did Hack Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember? That's when we first really started talking, because I only broke your hand, didn't I?
I know exactly what you're going to tell. Yeah, thanks for I remember that now, yeah. I do remember that one very well.
Now, the first experience on that night, actually, our little group. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but we went down to a part where they had the mannequins behind the glass.
Yeah, like the telecommunication part of it, the hospital part.
No, the other side, further down, they've got like mannequins behind glass, right? So we were in there, and there was a door there. So we opened the door, and behind the door, there was a set of metal ladders, and we climbed the ladders. Ruth was there, Sonia, Nicola. We climbed the ladders, and we got onto this platform. And this platform must have been over 100 foot long. At the bottom of the platform, like a corridor.
Yeah.
We went to the outside. There was a metal gate,
I remember now, yeah.
Yeah, but the metal gate. On the other side, we found a trap door. Now, the girl that was running the place, she said there was only 2 layers to the place. We opened it, there was about 3 or 4 layers going down, if you remember.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us go any further.
Yeah. So when we done, I think Paul, he done this like seance, an open seance. So Sonia always stuck next to me, and it was very, very dark. And all of a sudden, this overwhelming energy, I felt something going round us, and it frightened me. I put me back against the wall. I was so frightened. It wasn't normal spiritual activity. It was there. So I was petrified. And then later on, when we had a chat after, she did say to us about they, it is known that they took aliens out of there in metal oil drums. And I swear to God, I was picking up on aliens, because I do. I pick up on aliens a lot, right? That frightened me. And then later on our last vigil, we were all sat down in that room, weren't we?
That's right. Yeah.
And me and Nicola wanted to go in the other room to do a sit down in there, but Paul says, no, we'll go in there. So we did. And we sat there, and I was next to you, and we were all holding hands. And then something came into the circle, and it just blew itself at me and this guy who I sat next to on the other side. And it knocked us over. I was so scared, nearly broke your hand.
I remember, yeah. Yeah, thanks for bringing that one back. I do remember that now, because it really hurt. And I mean, I think I was on. I'll tell you what that one was. I was on the left hand side, and I remember just squeezing it so tight, and I was going and like.
Frightening that,
yeah. But do you remember also when we were in? I've come back to it. I've got to ask you the question in a minute anyway. But I'll also remember. Do you remember when we were down there and we heard this almighty scream, and we never thought anything of it. We just thought it was the other group what was there. But when we got back up and we were having a break, and I turned around and said, "Which one of you screamed?" And they were going, "None of us screamed. We thought it was you. We thought it was them, and they thought it was us." But it wasn't any of us. It was just an almighty scream what every single one of us heard, and we couldn't account for that. Do you remember that well?
I do. That is buzzing. That place is really buzzing.
It is.
Really is.
It is. And what I was going to go back to is where you were talking about the aliens in the place. I mean, as you know, it was called the secret bunker for a reason. What's your opinions on the UFOs? Have you seen anything like that, or do you believe in them a lot, or? I know it's a bit different than the paranormal, but because you mentioned it, I thought I'd have to ask you.
Yes, I've seen a few things, Jamie, and I've started to investigate stuff now.
Right,
I really have. Now, many years ago, I had a really strange experience. I had a baby boy, 6-week-old, and a 15-month-old boy, and I was in bed, and something in the house, I couldn't feel what it was, so it was so overwhelming, this feeling.
Yeah.
It was frightening me. So I went in, and there was a humming. So I went in my little boy's room. He was all right. Looked through the back window. There was nothing out the back. Nothing. I picked my little boy up, and I took him in with me. So I had my little boy on one side, and my 6-week-old baby on the other. Then I felt things in the room. And I had my eyes closed, my heart was pumping.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they were all round, and I held these babies tight. It felt like it was just overwhelming. And I don't know what it was then.
Yeah.
Didn't know what it was. That went on for 10 minutes or more, and then the next thing, it had just gone.
Wow.
Like as if it had never happened, but there was a humming, and it went over the house.
Yeah.
And it was heavy. It was a bit of a shake over the house.
Yeah.
And that disappeared. Now, many years later, when I lived at another place, I used to go out often at night after work to get the washing in. I'd put it out before I went to work. I used to go out at night when I come home, get the washing in. But sometimes I used to feel like there was stuff there, and it was just overpowering me, and I didn't know what it was. I used to get the kids to come out and get the washing in with me. Now, in 1996, I was waiting for my husband to come in from darts. He'd been out to darts. It was a Wednesday night. It was freezing cold. It was 11:15. He came in the house. He said, "You better get out here and have a look at this." I thought I'd done something wrong, you know. And I said, "Why? What's wrong?" He said, "Just get out here now and have a look at this." So I went outside with him, walked to the gate, pitch black, freezing cold, and I'm looking up and down the street. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Can't you see it?" I said, "What am I looking for?" He was taking the mickey. "What am I looking for? What am I looking?" He said, "Look up." And we looked up, and there was a big, giant black triangle. It was huge, about 2 football pitches.
Wow.
Now this was just floating. There was no feeling off it.
Yeah.
There was no noise, no vibration. It was about 85 foot off the floor.
Wow.
Each corner had a very creamy white, dull white light on it.
Yeah.
And underneath there was a bigger light, but it was like a very pale, orangey, opaque kind of, and it just floated. And I said, "What's that?" Right? So I said, "Do you think it's a balloon or something?" He said, "No, it's a UFO." Now, it's not like him to say things he doesn't believe in stuff, right? So we stood there and we watched it. We went up the top of the field, up the top of the street, up the top of the school field, turned round, and then it shot like that.
You're like at really high speed.
In the house, it went towards the river. I went upstairs to the boys' room because their room faced that. I could see it. It was at the end of the peninsula, at the end of the River Dee, the estuary. And it was there for a few seconds, and it shot towards Cheshire. So say it's going towards like Liverpool Airport that way.
Yeah, that direction. Yeah. Our direction. That's great, isn't it?
Sod's Law.
Right. So that was then in 1996. Now in 2011, I think you know this story. I'm sure I've told you. I went camping, right? And we went down by Cardigan. And we went down on the Monday, which is the 25th of April, 2011. We were staying till the Thursday because I wanted to come home because I wanted to watch Prince William marry Kate.
Of course,
right.
Yeah.
Now, we booked into this caravan park, camping site. Now, there's one van there, like a mobile van, and they just had brand new shower blocks and toilet blocks. So the woman said, "Why don't you go to the top field and we'll give you the electrics because you're the only ones here?" And we said, "Yeah, all right, fair enough." So we went up there. Next day, these people in his camp van went, so we had the whole place to ourselves.
Yeah.
Now on the Tuesday night, it was early hours of Wednesday morning, 2:30 in the morning. I woke up, I wanted a wee. I couldn't wake him up. Toilets were 2 fields away, and all I could hear outside was screaming sheep. Right? And it was scaring me. I didn't know whether to go for a wee, just hold it, but it was hurting.
Yeah.
I couldn't wake him up. So anyway, the screaming got a bit less, so I went outside and had a wee behind the tent, right? So I went and this screaming got a bit less, so I thought, I'm going to be brave here. I'm going to walk to the end of the field and have a look over the hedge to see if I can see these sheep. So I walked up, I went the little embankment, 2 steps up the embankment, there's a little hedge, so I looked over the hedge, and it was very dark, but it looked down into a valley. And there was nothing anywhere, no cars, nothing, no lights on houses, nothing. But ahead of me, a few miles up, there was a big giant. It looked like a horseshoe, but it was massive. But it wasn't a horseshoe, it would have been a circle. But round this horseshoe shape, there was 9 lights. It wasn't anything on the ground shining onto it. It wasn't a fair. It wasn't nothing. Because I'd looked over there that day before. There was nothing there. I went round taking photographs. Because I like taking photographs of nature and stuff and flowers and trees and everything. So I looked and I couldn't figure out what it was. And what it was doing, these 9 lights around it were all spaced out evenly. And when the lights were big, they were white and they shrunk to red. So it was pulsating slowly to white
Yeah.
And then shrunk down to red. And I was thinking, what is it? I couldn't figure it out. Didn't know what it was. So anyway, I was there for a few minutes trying to figure out. And the next thing, something caught my eye. So I looked to the left, which was northeast. And there was a hill, maybe 10 miles up, could be less, couldn't see properly, couldn't tell the difference, in the distances in the dark.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't know the area. So I looked up, and there was a big hill, and there was a television mast on, so there was a big mast with several red lights on. I looked at it, and the next thing, there was a red light, a ball of light, which came round the side of the hill, came down the valley, and it landed at the side of this big shape, which was pulsating white and red. I thought, what on earth can that be? And I looked, and it was just there. So I'm looking at it from the left of this thing, and it sort of juddered a bit. And then it went from red to white, and it got in the same rhythm as this big circle. So it was going white.
So it was almost kind of synchronising with it.
It synchronised itself to this big thing, and I looked, and about a minute or so later, it shuddered again, and it sort of went pop, and there was two of them.
Yeah.
So it had two of these big things, and you know when you rub your eyes because you can't believe what you see?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I couldn't understand what it was, and it was there for a little while, and then all of a sudden, the new one went backwards.
Yeah.
And it went sideways behind the first one, and then slotted up close to the first one. As soon as that happened, everywhere in that area went deadly silent. The animals stopped.
Weird, isn't it?
Hear nothing. It was deafening. The silence was deafening.
Wow.
I knew what I'd seen.
Yeah.
And I turned round and I legged it, but it was all. It was like my legs weren't going quick enough.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
You know what?
I couldn't get to the tent quick enough. I got in the tent.
Yeah.
I locked the tent door.
Isn't it funny how you think a tent with just a zip on it?
You know what I think's really interesting about that? Because I think, we all of us have grown up and seen, sci-fi movies and stuff such as that. And as Jamie will tell you, I'm a huge Star Wars fan of things. And I think when you see the, traditional depiction of an alien, it's almost kind of a humanoid type thing.
With big eyes.
With, particularly some of them with the big eyes and stuff. But what if, the extraterrestrial life, if you like, that you see is a completely different form of thing, and that red thing that you saw was that. Imagine if that was the life form. It's more of an energy form rather than it being a kind of physical thing such as you and I. It's really interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting, and it fascinates me because it was only last year. I seen another one last year, and I was out with friends. I was out with two friends. We'd gone for a meal. We were in Harden, and it was time to go. It was just after 11 o'clock, and so my friend, it was her sister that lived in Sandcroft. So we went out of the pub. We turned left, went down towards Broughton, turned left down a little lane towards Sandcroft, and her sister said, "What's that there?" So we stopped the car and had a look, and it was a big black triangle, angled like a 60-degree angle, and it was floating over Sandycroft. I said, "Oh my God, let's chase it." So his sister said, "Just drop me off home first." She said, "I can't go, I'm too scared." So we dropped her off, and we chased it. And we went over towards Sandycroft Industrial Estate.
Yeah.
And by then it had gone down the back of the river behind aerospace.
Yeah.
Now, a few months later, I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she said, I was telling her about this. She'd really, I said, "Yeah, honest to God, I'm not making it up. I had two people there with me, and we seen it, we chased it."
Wow.
And she said, "Well, I'll tell you now," she said, "I can tell you that people have actually seen a few of these down there, and you need to phone up Broughton and tell them, because they're getting more of it." I said, "Oh, I don't know about that. They won't believe me anyway."
Yeah.
Because nobody believes you, but there was three of us there, and we all seen it.
Unbelievable.
So I've started, going in the UFO thing. So I got myself. I'm with a friend of mine who's absolutely fantastic, and we've got our own website now. Can I mention the website?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because I've got my own page, and it's ufo.uk.net. And if you go onto there, it's got all about the Berwyn Mountain crash. The guy who runs it, he's been doing it for many, many years, and he shared a lot of information with me, which I can't talk about.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely fantastic, and I put some of my stories on there, and we actually caught something in July. A friend of mine who I work with now, because I'm a support worker.
Yeah.
And on a Monday night, I'm in work the next morning on the 12 hours, and I never sleep on a Monday night. Never sleep that night. So I couldn't get to sleep, and it was 2:30 in the morning. I heard my phone ding. So I looked on my phone. Now, this is the 21st of July this year. Yeah. I looked on my phone, and it was my friend, and she lived in Prestatyn. She put 2 photographs up, and she said, "Look what I've just caught in the sky." Right, so I said, "When was this?" And she said, "I just done it now." I said, "What direction? Where is it going? Where is it coming from?" She said, it's still there now. She said, "It's past Holywell." So she was looking from Prestatyn over Holywell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So she zoomed in and took these pictures. So this is what I done. I said, "Thank you, I'll go and have a look."
Yeah.
So I literally put my legs out of bed, step looked through my window, and it was above my house.
Oh gosh.
I am not joking, it was above my house, and I looked and I thought, "Is that a star? I've seen the stars, but this was giant."
Yeah.
Giant. So I took some pictures.
Brilliant.
And it was like I was tired then, so I got back into bed and I actually went to sleep and never thought of anything till the next morning.
Yeah.
And I shared it with my friend Russ Kellett.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "Will you have a look at these for me?" Absolutely amazing. So what we've got there, we've got my friend taking the picture of this. It wasn't a satellite.
Yeah.
It wasn't a drone. It wasn't an aeroplane. And she took one side. It's amazing photograph. You'll have to have a look.
Oh, well, yeah,
definitely love to see that.
Right at the bottom, right? So you've got hers, which is like a blurry orange.
Yeah.
And she's got another one, which is a solid object.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Now, my picture is the same one. Is a solid orange object, which looks a bit like a UFO, but it's orange, because it was twirling.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to pick what I got. And the other picture I took of it, you could see the orange at the back of it, but it looked like a white Tic Tac with crosses
Good
on.
description.
Two crosses.
Yeah.
Honest to God, and it's on that website. Go and have a look. It's ufo.uk.net.
Well, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
We'll check it out.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm looking at things like that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm quite happy for anybody who wants to contact you, Jamie. We'll go for a walk up there. We'll do a ghost walk.
Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Oh, I'd love to. I mean, we've got to come up anyway, Lynn, because what we're going to have to do is we do a ghost walk with you, and you can tell us the stories, and we can actually, put it on air for people to listen to.
Lynn, I've got to ask you something. One of the things we're asking a lot of the guests we've got on the show is, for people who are thinking about, getting involved in looking at the paranormal and things like that, what people such as yourself who's experiencing it, what your tips for them would be. And if you had some tips to give to people who are thinking, you know what, it's something I'd like to explore, what would they be?
Right, first of all, what I would say is if you're really interested in the paranormal, don't go out and expect it to just happen. They're not actors.
Yes, of course, yeah.
If a spirit wants to come and contact you, they'll come, or they won't come. We can go out, as Jamie knows, we've gone out on hundreds of ghost walks.
Yeah.
And you might get nothing, and then all of a sudden you get something really, really beautiful and fantastic. So if you get something good, if you don't force it. It's not going to come.
Yeah.
It won't come unless it wants to. Take lots of photographs, expect a lot of your batteries to go down, because if there is spirit there, it'll drain your batteries.
Yeah.
Be open-minded. Don't take it that it's a ghost. It could be anything. When you look at orbs, doesn't mean to say that they're actually spirits. It could be light deflection. It could be moisture. It could be insects. It could be dust. You'll know when you've got a proper orb because you'll see it. So don't go thinking, don't get disappointed because somebody's going to put you down for taking the photograph that you're going to say, oh, look what I've caught, because you might not have caught it. So don't be disappointed, but believe in yourself, believe in spirit, open your mind, be open to what it could be, but always think what it might not be.
Yeah. And one more question before, because we've got to finish soon anyway, Lynn, and one more question is, anybody who's listening to this about Wepre Park, can you give them some advice? Because it's not an easy place to get to. It's not an easy place to walk around over night time, and there are some steep hills. Is there any advice for anyone who's like thinking about going over there to do a ghost night or a ghost walk?
If anybody is deciding to go up there on a ghost walk, I mean, there are people who do go up there, but if you've never been there before, I suggest you go and map it out in the daytime. Know your limitations, know the danger points. Go through the daytime. Make sure that you've got waterproofs on because the weather changes and it can get very cold in there. Make sure that you've got torches, but always if you're new there, keep to the main paths. The main paths. If you're going to go doing anything else, get in contact with you or myself, which the viewers here can contact me through you. And, we can always sort something out, but don't ever go through the woods on strange tracks because you're going to end up injured.
Brilliant. That's fantastic advice. Thanks for that, Lynn. Lynn, we've got to carry on now, and we've got to say thank you to you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
You have been absolutely superb, as you usually are. Love the history with you, and I can't wait to meet up with you again. It's been too long.
Yes, it has. I'll be contacting you very soon, Jamie. I'll come over and see you and Marie.
Oh, you've got to. And I'll introduce you to James if he's about.
Yes,
I will be. I'll be there. and I've never been to Wepre Park. So next time, last time Jamie went, I unfortunately couldn't go. So I'm really excited to go and see it. But Lynn, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening and being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're very, very welcome, and thank you for having me on the show.
And Lynn, you've got to come on again. Thank you so much.
Well, what an amazing interview that was, and what a fascinating person Lynn is.
She is. She's incredible. She can talk incredibly clearly, and what I love about her is she's got, the exact information you need, the dates. It's incredible.
You know what? It's so interesting, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about, the paranormal is all the history that you get to explore for things.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, obviously where Lynn there has kind of found links to names and dates and is so knowledgeable about that location. But particularly the discussion on UFOs as well, because I know that is a show that we are going to plan on doing a full show which is focused specifically on that.
Yeah.
But that's something, again, that really fascinates me.
Well, I think when we do that, we'll get Lynn on because she's a mind of information.
Yeah.
How she keeps it all up there, I do not know.
No, I don't know, absolutely. Yeah. But you know what? Tonight has been really interesting because we've obviously had Jamie on earlier, Lynn on now, and I think it just goes to show how, people who are interested in the paranormal, it's just normal people and they enjoy it, and that for me is the most important thing. The reason we do it is, we all have normal lives. We do it as a hobby, and it's good fun, and that's the really important thing about it, isn't it?
People think we're all mad, but I mean, there's some wonderful.
There are
people.
moments when I do think to myself, like in the at 3 o'clock on in a Sunday morning when it's it's raining, and you think, why am I not out, enjoying coming home drunk now? Instead I'm in, the middle of a blooming dungeon somewhere or something like that.
I think what it is some of the buildings we go to and the history of it, and it's the unexplained as well,
Well, it is. And
it keeps
I also
dragging you
think,
back.
kind of going back to the history thing, a lot of the time, even if nothing happens, these are really interesting places to visit. And a lot of the times on paranormal nights, you kind of get to go in places what you don't normally see. You know, obviously Jamie mentioned earlier about the about Morecambe Winter Gardens and going in the substage area. You know, and Lynn obviously when you've been to Wepre with her, she's got loads of knowledge. So you find out all this other information that you know is really interesting from a historical point of view anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, both of them are mindful of information there, and it's great to see people enthusiastic like that and loving what they do. You know, and looking after the people who they go with as well. I mean, there's Lynn. I mean, when she just invited a load of people to go and do a tour of Wepre.
Exactly. Now, obviously, we say to listeners every week, if you've got a ghost story, if you've had an experience, it could be ghostly, it could be a UFO. If you'd like to recommend a location to us that you think is haunted and could potentially be investigated, you can contact us. The email address, Jamie, is, are you going to get it right?
info.accessparanormal@gmail.com.
There you go.
I've done it.
It's only taken 3 shows, but you've got there in the end. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you tonight, folks, hasn't it, Jamie?
It's been a fantastic night.
We're really looking forward to being back next week. I'm not sure if I'll be guest presenter again, but Mr. Williams certainly will be here.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether I'll be dragging you in or not, but you know, there'll be somebody else in your seat if you can't make it.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, folks. Take care. We've been Access Paranormal, and we will see you again at the same time next week.
Good night.